The alarm screamed through the command center of the Coalition Defense Fleet. Commander looked at the display screen and felt his blood turn cold. Another colony world had gone dark. That made 12 worlds in just 3 weeks. "Sir, we're getting emergency broadcasts from Helios 7, his communications officer said. Her voice shook. "They're asking for immediate evacuation." His hands gripped the edge of his console. His sister worked on Helios 7. She was a civilian engineer, maintaining the mining equipment that pulled rare minerals from the planet's crust. He had told her it was safe out there on the edge of Coalition space. He had promised her. "How long do they have?" he asked. 48 hours, maybe less. The fleet is moving fast." The Horde. Even their name made experienced soldiers nervous. They had appeared 6 months ago from the dark spaces beyond the galactic rim. Nobody knew where they came from or why they suddenly decided to invade. What everyone knew was that they were unstoppable. They looked like giant insects, but that comparison didn't capture how terrifying they truly were. Each warrior stood 3 meters tall, covered in black armor that grew from their own bodies. They fought with claws that could tear through steel and weapons that shot acid strong enough to melt ship hulls. Worst of all, they bred fast and fought without any fear. Every species in the Galactic Coalition had tried to stop them. They sent their best fleet. It was destroyed in 4 hours. They who had never lost a ground battle in 300 years tried to defend one of their fortress worlds. They overran it in 2 days. 12 worlds lost, millions dead, and the Horde kept coming. Pulled up the tactical display. The Coalition had 73 member species, but most of their fleets were scattered across the galaxy. It would take weeks to gather enough ships to defend Helios 7. The colony had maybe 2 days. He opened a channel to his sister. Her face appeared on the screen, and he could see the fear in her eyes even though she tried to hide it. "Tell me you have good news," said. "We're working on it. How many people are on the planet?" 15,000, mostly miners and their families. We've started packing, but we don't have enough transport ships. Even if you send every available vessel, we can only evacuate half. Felt sick. Half. That meant choosing who would live and who would die. That meant 7,000 people left behind to face the. He had seen the reports from other colonies. They didn't take prisoners. They didn't negotiate. They just killed everything and moved on. "I'll find a way," he promised. "Just hold on." "I trust you," said, and closed the connection. Stood in the command center and stared at the star map. Every simulation he ran showed the same result: total defeat. Even if he pulled every ship from nearby sectors, they would be outnumbered 10 to 1. They would tear through them like paper. Fleet Admiral entered the room. She was old for her species, her skin marked with the scars of dozens of battles. She had fought in every major conflict for the past 30 years. If anyone could find a solution, it was her. "I've reviewed your reports," she said quietly. "There's no conventional way to save that colony." "Then we find an unconventional way," said. "I'm not leaving my sister to die." Studied him for a long moment. Then she pulled up a file on her personal device and transferred it to the main display. It was marked with warnings and security tags that had never seen before. "Protocol Omega 9, said. "It's a first contact agreement signed 270 years ago. Most people don't even know it exists." Read through the file. It described a mutual defense pact with a species from Sector 14, a species that had passed the Coalition's sentience tests and agreed to help defend against threats. But there was almost no information about them. "Who are they?" he asked. "They call themselves humans. When we first made contact, they were barely reaching their own moon. Primitive technology, constant wars among themselves, dangerous planet. We didn't expect much from them. They signed the treaty, agreed to the basic rules, and then asked to be left alone. And we just forgot about them. We respected their wishes. They made it clear they wanted to develop without interference. We marked their space as off-limits and moved on. That was 2.5 centuries ago. Looked at the coordinates. Sector 14 was close enough to reach quickly, but far enough that nobody paid attention to what happened there. Do we know anything else about them? He asked. Their planet was classified as a death world. High gravity, dangerous wildlife, extreme weather. Most species wouldn't survive there. The initial reports said the humans were aggressive but showed potential. We haven't heard from them since the treaty signing. So they might not even exist anymore. They could have destroyed themselves in their wars. Possible, admitted. But if they're still there, and if they've continued developing, we might have a chance. The treaty states clearly that any member species under attack can call for help. Thought about it, they had no other options. No fleet, no time, no hope. Just an ancient treaty with a species nobody remembered. Send the signal, he said. You understand this could make things worse. We don't know what they've become. We don't know if they'll even respond. I understand, but I have to try. Nodded and activated the emergency beacon. It was designed to punch through space and reach Sector 14 faster than any normal communication. The message was simple, written in the mathematical language that all coalition species understood. It explained the threat, gave the coordinates, and asked for help. Then they waited. Minutes passed. Pace, the command center, watching the display, was down there, probably packing her things, probably scared. He had promised to protect her. The communications console beeped. Everyone in the command center froze. Sir, we're receiving a response, the officer said. It's from Sector 14. Already, that's impossible. The signal just reached them. I know, sir, but it's definitely a response, and it's in our language. Move to the console, put it on screen. The message appeared. It was text only, no video. The words were short and simple, but something about them made skin prickle. Message received, threat confirmed. We are coming. Hold the line. Estimated arrival in 46 hours. Do not surrender. Humanity remembers its promises. The command center was silent. 46 hours. That was exactly when they would arrive at Helios 7. These humans, whoever they were, would be cutting it close. Well, said softly, I suppose we're about to find out what happened to humanity. Looked at the message again. Something about the tone bothered him. It wasn't a request for information. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Cold, final, certain. He opened a channel to Helios 7 and told them help was coming. He didn't mention that the help was from a forgotten species that nobody knew anything about. He didn't mention that this might be their only chance. All he said was hold on, just a little longer. In the darkness of space, something ancient was waking up, and wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not. Captain stood on the bridge of the Coalition cruiser Morning Star and watched death approach. The horde had arrived right on schedule. 1,500 warships appeared from the darkness, their organic hulls pulsing with sickly green light. All ships battle positions, he ordered. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. He commanded 12 coalition vessels, 12 against 1,500. The math was brutal and simple. Around him, officers moved to their stations. Some of them were crying. They knew what was coming. Everyone had seen the reports from the other colonies. They didn't just kill, they enjoyed it. Sir, the defense platforms are ready, his tactical officer reported. Planetary shields at maximum. Nodded. The shields would buy them maybe an hour. The platforms would destroy a few enemy ships before being overwhelmed. Then they would land on Helios 7 and the real horror would begin. He thought about the 15,000 people on the planet below. They were watching their only defense force and knowing it wasn't enough. Some were probably praying. Others were saying goodbye to their families. Captain, I'm picking up something strange, the sensor officer said. There's a distortion in space, multiple distortions, behind us. No, sir, different signature. Something's coming through. turned to look at the main display. Space was rippling like water. Then it tore open and ships started coming through. Not just a few ships, hundreds of them. They were unlike anything had ever seen. The coalition favored smooth, curved designs that flowed with the natural forces of space. They grew their ships from living material, all organic curves and pulsing veins. These new ships were different. They were angular, aggressive, covered in dark gray armor that seemed to absorb light. Weapons bristled from every surface. They looked like they were built for one purpose only: war. "Count them," ordered. 287 vessels so far. No, wait, more are coming through. Current count 312. 300 ships, where had they come from? "Sir, we're being hailed, audio only." "Put it through." A voice filled the bridge. It was female, speaking in perfect coalition standard language. But there was something about the accent, the way certain words were pronounced, that marked the speaker as foreign. "Coalition vessels, this is Admiral of the Human Defense Fleet, commanding the dreadnought Indomitable. We received your distress call. We are here to assist. Please transmit all tactical data on enemy positions and capabilities." Human, the word clicked in his mind. The ancient treaty, the forgotten species, they had actually come. "This is Captain of the Morning Star. We are grateful for your assistance, Admiral, transmitting tactical data now." He gestured to his communications officer, who sent everything they knew about the data received. Admiral replied. "Captain, please pull your forces back to the planet's orbital shield. We'll handle the initial engagement." "Admiral, there are 1,500 enemy vessels. You're outnumbered nearly 5 to 1. There was a pause. Then the human admiral spoke again and could hear something in her voice. Not fear, not uncertainty, something that made his skin crawl. "Captain, those aren't bad odds. We've faced worse. Pull back and protect the colony. We'll take care of this." The human fleet moved forward. They didn't form a defensive position. They didn't try to spread out and minimize losses. They simply accelerated directly toward the armada in a tight formation. "Are they insane?" his tactical officer whispered. They detected the new arrivals. Their response was instant and predictable. They broadcast their standard intimidation signal, a psychic scream designed to break the will of their enemies. Every species in the galaxy feared that sound. It carried the promise of pain and death. The human ships didn't even slow down. Admiral opened a channel. This time she spoke in a different language, harsh and clicking. It took his computer a moment to realize she was speaking. Perfect, fluent. "Horde, this is Admiral of the Human Defense Fleet. You have entered protected space and attacked an ally. You have 30 seconds to withdraw all forces and retreat beyond the galactic rim. This is your only warning." The translation software struggled to capture the tone but understood the message. It wasn't a request, it was a notification. The response came quickly. Their queen's voice, translated by the computers, was full of contempt. "Humans, we have never heard of you. You are nothing. We are the Horde. We consume worlds. We are inevitable. You will die like all the others." 29 seconds, Admiral said calmly. The fleet charged forward. 1,500 ships moving at full speed, weapons charging, boarding pods ready. It was the same tactic they had used on 12 worlds. Overwhelming force. No mercy. No survivors. 10 seconds, Admiral counted down. Watched in horrified fascination. The human ships held formation. They didn't fire. They didn't maneuver. They just kept moving forward on a collision course. 5 seconds. "They're going to ram them," someone on the bridge said. "They're all going to die." 1 second, time's up. What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for centuries. The human fleet opened fire. But these weren't the elegant energy weapons the Coalition used. These weren't the bioacid missiles they employed. These were old-fashioned kinetic weapons. Mass drivers. Simple metal rods accelerated to impossible speeds. The sound of it, transmitted through space debris and electromagnetic radiation, was like thunder. Ships started exploding. Not damaged, not disabled, exploding. The kinetic rounds punched through their organic armor like it didn't exist. Each impact released so much energy that entire vessels simply came apart. "They're firing from this distance," tactical officer said in disbelief. "That's beyond maximum range for any known weapon." But the humans kept firing. Their targeting was perfect. Every shot hit, every hit killed. They tried to adapt. They spread out, tried to flank the human formation. The human fleet split into smaller groups, each one moving with perfect coordination. They didn't fight like the coalition, carefully managing resources and minimizing risk. They fought like predators. Watched as one human destroyer took fire from 3 cruisers. Its shields collapsed. Its armor burned. Any coalition ship would have retreated. The destroyer accelerated, rammed one of the cruisers, and exploded. The blast took out all 3 ships. "Did they just sacrifice their own ship?" someone asked. "They did," said quietly, "and they took 3 enemies with them." More human ships were launching small objects toward the fleet. Computer identified them as boarding pods. They were simple metal cylinders, barely large enough for a person. No shields, no weapons, just rocket engines and thick armor. "They're boarding the ships," the tactical officer reported. "Those pods are crashing straight through the hulls." "That's suicide. They are deadly in close combat. No species can match them hand to hand." But the humans were doing it anyway. Pulled up a feed from one of the ships. The camera showed a corridor inside the organic vessel. A boarding pod had punched through the wall, and something was emerging. A human soldier stepped out. The armor was bulky and mechanical, covered in scratches and carbon scoring. The soldier carried a weapon that looked almost primitive, firing solid projectiles instead of energy beams. 3 warriors charged down the corridor. Each one was twice the size of the human. Their claws could tear through steel. They screamed their war cry. The human didn't retreat, didn't hesitate. The soldier met them head-on. What followed was brutal. The human fought with a speed and ferocity that shocked. The weapon fired in controlled bursts, each round finding weak points in the armor. When one warrior got close, the human dropped the gun and pulled out a knife. A knife, against a 3-meter-tall alien monster with claws and acid blood. The human won. All across the battlefield, the same scene played out. Human soldiers boarding ships, fighting through corridors, hunting the enemy in their own vessels. They didn't just fight to survive. They fought to win. "Captain, the fleet is breaking formation," the sensor officer reported. "They're taking heavy casualties. Wait, some of them are retreating." Couldn't believe it. They never retreated. They fought until death. But the sensor readings didn't lie. Enemy ships were turning away, trying to escape. The human fleet pursued them. Admiral's voice came over the communications channel again. She was speaking to the entire fleet, her voice cold and clear. "You were given a chance to leave. You chose war. Now you understand your mistake. Tell your leaders, tell your queens, humanity is here, and we do not forgive threats against our allies." The battle continued for 6 hours. When it finally ended, 1,400 ships had been destroyed or captured. The remaining 100 had fled back into deep space, broadcasting warnings in their own language. Read the translation of those warnings. They were telling their horde to avoid human space. They were calling humans the worst thing one could call another. Monsters. The human fleet took up positions around Helios 7. Admiral sent a simple message to the colony. "This planet is under our protection. You are safe." Looked at the debris field where the battle had been fought. Thousands of ships destroyed. Only 12 human vessels lost. 12 against 1,500, and the humans had won. He thought about the ancient treaty. the species that had asked to be left alone, the primitive warriors from a death world. What had they become in 270 years? And more importantly, what had the coalition just awakened? Lieutenant Minu stood in the observation deck of the Morning Star and watched the human soldiers work. They were cleaning up after the battle, recovering bodies from destroyed ships and securing captured vessels. Everything they did was efficient and professional, but something about them made his skin crawl. "They don't look that scary," said Ensign beside him. She was young, fresh out of the academy. She hadn't seen what Minu had seen during the battle. "Keep watching," Minu said quietly. Below them on the landing deck, a squad of human marines was unloading from their boarding shuttle. They were removing their armor, revealing the creatures inside. Humans were shorter than most coalition species, but they were built thick with muscle. Their skin came in different shades of brown and tan. Their eyes were forward-facing, like predators. One of the Marines noticed them watching. She looked up and smiled. It should have been friendly, but Minu saw the teeth. Flat teeth for grinding plant matter, yes, but also sharp teeth in the corners. Teeth meant for tearing meat. "They eat other animals," Minu said. "I checked their files. They're omnivores, but they prefer meat. On their world, they were the apex predators." "Lots of species eat meat," said. "Not like this. Most species that eat meat are scavengers or pack hunters of small prey. Humans hunted everything. There are records of them killing creatures 10 times their size, for food, for sport, sometimes just because those creatures were in their way." The Marine waved at them, still smiling, waved back nervously. Captain entered the observation deck. He looked exhausted. He had been coordinating with the human fleet for hours, trying to understand their procedures and capabilities. "Minu, I need you to do something for me," said. "I want a full analysis of the battle, how they fought, what weapons they used, their tactics, everything." "I've already started, sir, but I need to warn you, what I'm finding is disturbing." "Show me." Minu pulled up the tactical display and replayed the battle. The humans attacked in what they call a hammer formation. Tight group, maximum firepower, straight at the enemy. It's suicide by every coalition standard. But it worked. It worked because they don't care about casualties the way we do. Watch this. Minu highlighted one of the human destroyers. This ship, the Defiant, took heavy damage early in the battle. Life support was failing. The captain could have retreated. Instead, he rammed 2 cruisers and detonated his own reactor. "We saw that. What you didn't see was this." Minu pulled up a communication log. Before he did it, the captain sent a message to his crew. He gave them 10 seconds to get to escape pods. Then he locked down the bridge and did it anyway. 17 crew members died with him. By choice. "Looked sick, that's barbaric." "That's human," Minu said. "They value the mission above individual survival. It's how they're trained. I accessed their military database. They have a saying, mission first, people always. It sounds contradictory, but what it means is they'll die to complete the objective, but they'll also die to save their teammates." Studied the battle replay. "What about their weapons? Those shouldn't work at that range." "They shouldn't. The projectiles should drift off course. The targeting should fail. But human weapons use advanced predictive algorithms. They calculate where the target will be, account for every variable, and fire. Their hit rate was 97%. That's better than our computer-guided energy weapons." "And the boarding actions?" Minu pulled up combat footage. "This is what really concerns me. The humans have been fighting their own kind for their entire history. They know every trick, every tactic, every way to kill efficiently. Watch this." The footage showed a human soldier, Private Bora according to her ID tag, entering a ship alone. Her squad had been killed breaching the hull. Protocol said she should retreat. She went deeper instead. The camera from her helmet showed her moving through dark corridors. She was hunting. That was the only word for it. She moved from shadow to shadow, making almost no sound despite the heavy armor. A warrior appeared around a corner. It was massive, armed with acid sprayers. Bora didn't fire her weapon. She waited. They came closer. At the last second, Bora rolled under its claws, came up behind it and stabbed it in the joint where its head met its body. It collapsed. She kept moving. The footage showed her clearing room after room. She fought 6 more warriors. She killed them all using different methods. Shooting. Stabbing. In one case, she used the ship's own systems against them, venting atmosphere and letting the vacuum kill them. "Where is she going?" asked. "The ship's command chamber," Minyu said. "She's hunting the queen." The footage showed Bora reaching a large organic chamber. The queen was there, twice the size of the warriors, surrounded by guards. Bora didn't hesitate. She threw a grenade into the room, waited for the explosion, and charged in. What followed was brutal. Bora fought like something feral. When her rifle ran out of ammunition, she used her sidearm. When that was empty, she used her knife. When she lost the knife, she used her armored fists. By the time she killed the queen, her armor was covered in acid burns and her own blood. But she won. The footage cut to black as Bora collapsed. Medical teams found her 20 minutes later and dragged her out. According to the reports, she was back on duty 3 days later. "That's one soldier," said quietly. "One human, and she did what it takes an army to do." "It gets worse, sir," Minyu said. "I analyzed all the boarding actions. The humans had an 84% success rate. That means out of every 100 boarding pods they launched, 84 successfully captured or destroyed their target. The Coalition's best boarding teams have a 30% success rate." "How is that possible?" "Because humans don't fight to survive. They fight to win, and they're willing to die to make that happen. It's in their culture, their history, their psychology. They're persistence hunters. On their world, they would chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. They didn't give up. They never gave up." Looked at the debris field outside. "Pull up everything we have on human history. I want to know what they were like before we found them." Minyu and his team worked for hours, digging through the old First Contact files. What they found painted a terrifying picture. Humanity's home world, Earth, was classified as a Class 12 death world. Only the most dangerous planets got that rating. Earth had extreme weather, deadly predators, toxic plants, and diseases that could kill in days. Most species would need protective suits just to visit. Humans evolved there. They were born into that death trap and not only survived but thrived. But it was their history that truly shocked the Coalition team. In just 10,000 years of civilization, humans had fought over 15,000 wars. They had killed each other by the millions. They had invented weapons of incredible destruction. Chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons that could destroy entire cities. They had almost made themselves extinct several times, but they kept going. "Look at this," said, pulling up a historical document. "This is from a war they called World War II. It happened about 400 years ago. In just 6 years, they killed more than 70 million of their own kind." 70 million, said. "That's more than the entire population of some Coalition species." And they didn't stop fighting. They've had wars constantly. Even now, even with their unified world government, they maintain massive militaries. It's like they're always preparing for the next fight. Minyu found something else. "Sir, look at this. Humans have a concept called mutually assured destruction. During their nuclear age, they built enough weapons to destroy their planet several times over. Both sides knew that if one attacked, everyone would die. But they built the weapons anyway." "That's insane." "No, sir. That's human. They're willing to destroy themselves rather than surrender. Can you imagine fighting an enemy like that? An enemy that would rather die than lose?" The door to the observation deck opened. A human officer entered. She was tall for her species with dark hair tied back. Her uniform was clean and pressed, very professional. She smiled politely. "Captain, I'm Commander. Admiral sent me to coordinate joint operations. I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all, Commander. Please join us." Walked over to look at the tactical display. She saw the battle replay and nodded approvingly. "Good fight. Could have been better, but we'll take the win." "Better," Minyu said. "You destroyed 1,500 enemy ships and lost 12 of our own. That's 12 crews that didn't go home. We'll do better next time." There was something cold in the way she said it, like those 12 ships were just data points to be improved upon. "Commander, can I ask you something?" said. "Why did you come? We're strangers to you. You could have ignored the distress call." Looked at him with those predator eyes. "Because you needed help, because we signed a treaty, because it was the right thing to do. Humans keep their promises, Captain, always. Even if it costs lives. Especially then. We have a saying, we leave no one behind. Not our people, not our allies, not anyone who calls for help. That's who we are." She said it so simply, like it was obvious, like there was no other way to be. Minyu realized something in that moment. The humans weren't monsters because they enjoyed violence. They were monsters because they had made violence into an art form. They had spent thousands of years learning how to fight, how to kill, how to win. And they had gotten very, very good at it. But they had also kept their values, their loyalty, their willingness to protect others. "They are calling you monsters," said. "They're broadcasting warnings to avoid human space." Smile got wider. "Good, let them be afraid. Let every species that thinks about attacking coalition space know what happens. They'll face us, and we don't lose." She excused herself and left. The 3 coalition officers stood in silence. Finally spoke. "Are we sure we want them as allies? They're terrifying." "Better as allies than enemies," said. "The question is, what happens when the galaxy realizes what we've unleashed?" Outside, the human fleet maintained its perfect formations, silent, watchful, ready. And somewhere in the dark between stars, the Horde was regrouping and planning revenge. They didn't yet understand what they were facing, but they were about to learn. Fleet Admiral stood in the grand hall of the Coalition flagship and watched the humans arrive for the formal reception. They moved through the crowd like ghosts, polite and professional, but somehow separate from everyone else. Other species gave them space without realizing they were doing it. Admiral led the human delegation. She wore a formal uniform, dark blue with silver trim. Medals covered her chest. Had looked up what those medals meant. Each one represented a battle. There were 37 of them. Admiral said, greeting her formally, "Welcome. The Coalition owes you a tremendous debt." "We were honored to help," replied. Her voice was warm, but her eyes remained cold and calculating, always watching, always evaluating. "Though I hope this is the last time to threaten your people." "I share that hope. Please join me. I'd like to discuss future cooperation." They sat at a private table while the reception continued around them. Servers brought food and drink. Noticed that examined everything carefully before consuming it. Trust but verify. A human trait. "I must admit," said, "we know very little about your people. The last contact was over 2 centuries ago. What has humanity been doing in that time?" "Growing, learning, expanding. We have 37 colony worlds now. Another 15 under development. Our population is approaching 42 billion. 42 billion. The number was staggering. The entire coalition had maybe 200 billion people across all 73 species. That's impressive growth. "We breed fast," said with a slight smile. "It's a survival trait from our early days. We needed numbers to survive the predators on our world. I've read the reports about Earth, a death world. That must have been difficult. It made us what we are. Every species that survives a death world learns certain lessons. You adapt or you die. You fight or you die. You work together or you die. Those lessons stay with you. A server approached with a tray of drinks, took one and sipped it carefully. Noticed the slight pause, the way the human admiral evaluated the taste and effect before continuing. "Tell me about this," he said. "How long have they been threatening the coalition?" 6 months. They appeared from beyond the rim and started attacking. We've lost 12 worlds. But you have 73 member species. Surely your combined fleets could stop them. Felt embarrassment color her cheeks. The coalition was built for peace, not war. Most of our species haven't fought a real war in centuries. We have ships, yes, but we're not prepared for an enemy like the Peace said quietly. That must be nice. You sound like you've never experienced it. We haven't, not really. Humans have been at war for our entire recorded history. We fight ourselves when we don't have other enemies. It's in our nature. Studied the human admiral. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it also makes us very good at what we do. Across the hall, Captain was talking with a human colonel named. She was younger than most of the humans, maybe in her early 30s by their reckoning. She seemed more relaxed than the others, willing to answer questions. "So your people really came from a death world?" asked. "Earth? Yeah, beautiful place. Also incredibly dangerous. We have predators in every environment. Ocean, land, air. Some of them hunt humans. Even now, with all our technology, people still die to wild animals every year." "That's horrible." "It keeps us sharp," said. "You can't get complacent when your own planet is trying to kill you." "What's it like, living there?" "Thought about it? It's home. The gravity is heavy, about 1.3 times what you have on most coalition worlds. The air is thick with oxygen, 21%, which would be toxic to some species. We have storms that can level cities, earthquakes that crack the ground open, volcanoes that darken the sky. But it's also got the most beautiful sunsets you've ever seen. Blue oceans, green forests, white mountains. It's worth the danger. And you left it to come save strangers." "That's what you do," said simply. "You help people who need help. Isn't that what civilization means?" Wanted to believe that, but something bothered him. He excused himself and found Lieutenant Minu in the ship's intelligence center. "Still digging into human history?" asked. "Yes, sir, and I found something you need to see." Minu pulled up files on the main display. "These are human military databases. They're partially restricted, but they gave us observer access. I've been reading their tactical manuals, their history texts, their war records. And, sir, humans have been continuously at war for at least 5,000 years. Sometimes fighting each other, sometimes fighting other threats, but always fighting. They have refined warfare to a science." "We knew that already." "No, sir, we knew they fought a lot. We didn't understand what that means. Look at this." Minu showed tactical manuals from human military academies. They covered every conceivable type of warfare: ground combat, space combat, cyber warfare, biological warfare, psychological warfare, economic warfare. There were entire sections on how to fight when outnumbered, how to fight when all hope was lost. "They have procedures for losing," Minu said. "Actual written procedures on how to continue fighting even after you've officially lost. They call it resistance operations. The idea is that even if your main military is destroyed, you keep fighting with whatever you have left." "That's fanatical." "That's human, and look at this. Their casualty expectations." Minu pulled up a document. It outlined expected losses in various combat scenarios. The numbers were shocking. In a major ground battle, they expect 20 to 30% casualties and still consider it a victory if they achieve their objective. Most coalition species would retreat at 10% losses. They're willing to lose a third of their forces. They're willing to lose everything if that's what it takes. I found records of human battles where entire units fought to the last soldier, not because they were ordered to, because they chose to. They have a code: never surrender, never give up, never stop fighting. Felt sick. What kind of species develops that mentality? One that evolved on a death world. One that had to fight for everything. One that learned early that giving up means death. Specialist entered the intelligence center. She was a different than the human colonel, a coalition officer who handled data analysis. She looked excited and frightened at the same time. "Sirs, I found something. It's about human weapons technology." "What about it?" They used in the battle. Those are their export models. The weapons they're willing to sell to allies. I hacked into their restricted files. Sorry, Admiral said it was okay for research purposes. What did you find? Pulled up schematics. These are their actual military weapons, the ones they keep for themselves: particle beam cannons, antimatter missiles, kinetic orbital strikes, fusion bombs, and something they call relativistic kill vehicles. Basically, you accelerate a chunk of metal to near light speed and let physics do the rest. The impact would destroy a planet. They have planet killers. Multiple types. And that's just what I could find in the public military databases. I'm sure they have classified weapons we don't know about. Mean you pulled up more files? It gets worse. Humans have something they call military-industrial complex. It's entire planets dedicated to producing weapons. Factories that run 24 hours a day. Shipyards that can build a cruiser in 2 months. They're always producing, always preparing, always ready. But why? Asked. If they've unified their species, if they're at peace with each other, why do they need this? Because they learned a long time ago that peace is temporary, Minyu said. Look at their history. Every time they've let their guard down, something bad happened. They don't make that mistake anymore. Admiral entered the intelligence center. The reception was over. She looked tired and worried. What have you found? She asked. They showed her everything. The weapons, the tactics, the history, the philosophy. Listened in silence, her expression growing darker. They've been at war for 5,000 years, she said finally. Most species would have destroyed themselves. Humans almost did, several times, but they survived, and every near extinction made them stronger. It's like they learned from their mistakes but kept all the dangerous parts. Should we be afraid of them? I don't know, Admiral. They helped us. They saved Helios 7. They honored the treaty. But they're also the most dangerous species I've ever encountered, not because they're cruel, because they're so damn good at killing. Thought about Admiral, the cold eyes, the calculating mind, the absolute certainty that humans would win any fight they entered. How many ships do they have? She asked. Minyu checked his notes. According to the public databases, about 8,000 active warships, another 5,000 in reserve, plus countless support vessels, transports, and civilian ships that can be converted to military use in an emergency. 8,000. Did the math in her head. The coalition had maybe 12,000 warships spread across all member species. Humanity alone matched most of their military strength. And that's just their defense fleet, added. They also have planetary defense forces, system patrol groups, and something called the reserves. Basically, every human who served in the military stays on a list and can be called back to service. They have over 2 billion trained soldiers on call. 2 billion soldiers. The coalition had maybe 50 million active military personnel total. What have we done? Whispered. What have we awakened? A species that remembers its promises, Minyu said. A species that will fight to protect its allies. A species that terrifies the so much they're broadcasting warnings to their own kind. But what happens when the rest of the galaxy learns about them? What happens when other species realize there's a military power that could crush most of them? Nobody had an answer to that. In her quarters on the human dreadnought Indomitable, Admiral read the reports from her intelligence officers. They had observed the coalition's reactions. The fear, the uncertainty, the growing realization of what humanity represented. She sent a message to Earth Command. Initial contact successful, alliance holding, recommend proceeding with integration protocols, but be aware, they're starting to understand what we are. This could go badly if we're not careful. The response came hours later. It was simple: proceed as planned. Show them strength, but also show them honor. We need allies, not subjects. Make them understand we fight for them, not against them. Smiled slightly. That was the human way. Fight like demons, but fight for something worth protecting. Be the scariest thing in the galaxy, but use that power to defend the weak. She just hoped the coalition could accept that paradox. Because ready or not, humanity was about to take its place on the galactic stage. And nothing would ever be the same again. Overlord stood in the command chamber of his hive ship and watched the holographic display. 1,500 ships lost, 1,400 destroyed, the greatest military disaster in history, and all because of one unknown species. Humans, he said, testing the word. It tasted wrong in his mandibles. His advisors shifted nervously. None of them wanted to speak first. Finally, War Leader stepped forward. Overlord, perhaps we should avoid their territory, find easier prey. Skloss shot out and grabbed by the throat. Avoid, retreat. Is that what the Horde has become? Cowards who flee from primitives. He threw against the organic wall of the chamber. The other advisors backed away. We are the Horde. We have consumed 1,000 worlds. We are feared across the galaxy, and you suggest we run from these humans. But Overlord, the reports. I have read the reports. The survivors speak of monsters and demons. They say the humans fight without fear, that they cannot be stopped. Superstitious nonsense. They are just another species, flesh and blood like any other. Pulled up data on his display. They have 37 colony worlds, small fleet, primitive weapons. They won at Helios 7 through surprise and luck. That will not happen again. What are your orders, Overlord? We mobilize the entire Horde, every ship, every warrior, every vessel we can gather. We will show the galaxy what happens when someone defies us. We will destroy their worlds. We will kill their people. We will make them understand that they are the true monsters. And if they fight as they did before. His mandibles clicked in what might have been a laugh. Then they will die as all others have died. Alone and afraid, send the message. We go to war. The call went out across the fleet. Ships gathered from across the conquered territories. 8,000 vessels answered the call. The largest armada the Horde had ever assembled. It would take them 3 weeks to reach human space. In those 3 weeks, something changed in the galaxy. The news of Helios 7 spread. Every coalition species heard about the humans. Some were grateful, others were terrified, but everyone wanted to know more. Admiral called for an emergency session of the Coalition Council. Representatives from all 73 species gathered in the Great Chamber. For the first time in 270 years, a human was invited to attend. Admiral stood before the council. She was alone, surrounded by aliens of every shape and size. Some were massive, towering over her. Others were small and delicate. All of them stared. Members of the Galactic Coalition, Chancellor said. He was one of the founding species. We are here to discuss humanity's role in our alliance. Admiral, you saved one of our colonies. For that, we are grateful, but your actions have raised questions. I understand, said. Ask your questions. How many ships does humanity have? Approximately 8,000 active warships, with another 5,000 in reserve. Murmurs ran through the chamber. That was more than most species had individually. How large is your military? Currently, about 100 million active personnel. Another 2 billion in reserves who can be mobilized if needed. The murmurs got louder. What are your intentions toward the coalition? Looked around the chamber. We intend to honor our treaty. We will defend coalition space as if it were our own. We will stand with our allies against any threat, and we ask nothing in return except the same loyalty we offer." "But you have the power to conquer us," someone said. "How do we know you won't?" "Because conquest isn't our goal. Survival is. Protection is. We learned long ago that the only way to truly be safe is to make sure our neighbors are safe too. Strong alliances are better than weak subjects. The call you monsters. The attack peaceful colonies and slaughter civilians. If defending against that makes us monsters, then yes, we are monsters, and we're proud of it." Chancellor studied her carefully. "What would you do if they attack again?" "We'll destroy them, completely. We'll chase them back to whatever hole they crawled out of and make sure they never threaten anyone again." "That sounds like genocide." "That sounds like defense. They have killed millions. They've destroyed 12 worlds. They've shown no mercy and accepted no peace. So yes, if they come at us, we'll end them. Because that's what you do with monsters. You don't negotiate. You don't compromise. You stop them." The chamber was silent. Finally, Admiral stood. "I propose we recognize humanity as a guardian species. Give them authority to defend coalition space with full autonomy over military operations. Let them do what they do best. Protect us." "That's unprecedented," someone objected. "No single species has that much power." "No single species has saved us from the either," countered. "I've seen what humans can do. I've studied their history. Yes, they're dangerous. Yes, they're frightening. But they're also loyal, honorable, and effective. I would rather have them on our side than against us." The vote took hours. In the end, 41 species voted yes. 28 voted no. 4 abstained. It was enough. Humanity became the coalition's first guardian species. 3 weeks later, the Horde arrived at the edge of human space. 8,000 ships, the largest force they had ever assembled. Overlord stood in his command chamber and felt satisfaction. The humans would see this fleet and surrender, or they would fight and die. Overlord were detecting ships ahead, human fleet formations. "How many?" 3,000 vessels. They're forming a defensive line around their colony world. Clicked his mandibles. "Only 3,000. They're outnumbered more than 2 to 1. This will be easy." But something bothered him. The human ships weren't running. They weren't calling for help. They were just waiting. A transmission came through. It was Admiral again. "Overlord, you were warned. You were given a chance to retreat. You chose war, so be it. There will be no second warning. There will be no mercy. You have attacked coalition space. You have threatened our allies, and now you threaten our worlds. That ends today." "Brave words from someone outnumbered," replied. "You cannot win this battle." "You're wrong, we already have." The human fleet opened fire. But this time they didn't just use, they used everything. Particle beams that punched through armor like paper, antimatter missiles that erased ships from existence, cyber warfare programs that turned bioships against their own fleet, and something new, something terrifying. Relativistic kill vehicles. They were simple chunks of metal accelerated to 90% light speed. When they hit a ship, there was no explosion, no fire, just instant vaporization. The kinetic energy was so enormous that matter simply ceased to exist at the impact point. Watched in horror as his fleet started dying, not slowly, not giving him time to adapt, just dying, hundreds of ships every minute. "Pull back, retreat." But the human fleet pursued. They had spread out now, surrounding the armada. Every escape route was covered. Every angle of retreat was blocked. This wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter. On the human dreadnought Indomitable, Admiral watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The plan was working perfectly. They had let them gather their entire force in one place, let them commit everything, and now they would end the threat permanently. "Ma'am, enemy casualties at 40% and rising," her tactical officer reported. Continue the attack. No survivors who resist. Accept surrenders but verify them. I want every ship either destroyed or captured. Some are trying to flee. Let them go. Make sure they see what happened here. Make sure they spread the word. The horde ends today. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it was over, 7,000 ships were destroyed. 800 had surrendered. Only 200 escaped. But the cost was real. 400 human ships destroyed. 60,000 dead. Read the casualty reports and felt the weight of every name. Every lost crew member was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. But they had done what needed doing. The horde was broken. The threat was ended. Captain watched the battle from a coalition observation ship. He saw the humans fight with absolute determination. He saw them take losses that would break any other species and keep fighting. He saw them win. But he also saw something else. After the battle, human ships searched for survivors. They rescued warriors from destroyed vessels. They provided medical care to prisoners. They treated their defeated enemies with dignity. I don't understand, Ensign said beside him. They were so brutal in battle. Now they're helping the survivors. Because humans understand something we don't, said. The difference between an enemy and evil. There were enemies, dangerous ones. So the humans destroyed their ability to fight. But now that they've won, they're showing mercy. Because that's what civilization means. A human medical ship passed nearby. Through the windows, could see humans treating wounded, the same species they had been killing hours before. They really are monsters, whispered, but maybe monsters are what the galaxy needs. 3 months later, the coalition held a ceremony on Earth. It was the first time most species had visited the human. They were shocked by what they found. The gravity was crushing, the air was thick. The wildlife was terrifying, but the planet was also beautiful, and the humans had made it more so. Great cities rose into the sky. Green parks covered the land between them. Art and music filled the streets. Commander walked through the streets of Seoul with his sister. She had insisted on coming to Earth, wanting to see the world of the people who saved her colony. It's so heavy, she said, struggling with the gravity. How do they live like this every day? They don't know any different. This is normal for them. They reached a memorial. It was a massive wall covered in names, hundreds of thousands of them. What is this? Asked. A human approached. It was Corporal, one of the engineers had met during the battle aftermath. It's our war memorial, said. Every person who died defending others, we remember them all, every name, every sacrifice. There are so many. Yes, war is terrible. That's why we fight so hard to protect peace, because we know the cost. Looked at the names, so much death, so much sacrifice, and yet humans kept fighting, kept protecting, kept helping. Why do you do it? He asked. Why risk everything for strangers? Smiled sadly. Because someone has to, because we can, because it's right. Humans have a saying, we may not be able to save everyone, but we'll die trying. At the ceremony, Admiral officially recognized humanity as the coalition's guardian species. Admiral accepted on behalf of her people. We take this responsibility seriously, said. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as protectors. We will stand between the coalition and any threat. We will be the shield and the sword, and we will never abandon those who call for help. The assembled species applauded. Some still feared humanity, but all of them respected what humans had done. In the dark between the stars, predatory species that had raided coalition space for centuries quietly changed their plans. Pirates found other hunting grounds. Slavers avoided human territory. Criminal organizations marked coalition space as off-limits. Because word had spread across the galaxy, there was a new power in civilized space, a species from a death world that had refined warfare to an art form, a species that would fight to the death to protect its allies. The humans called themselves guardians, but everyone else knew the truth. The galaxy had new apex predators, and the real monsters had learned to fear them. On Earth, in a quiet cemetery, someone placed flowers on a grave. The name on the stone was Private Bora. She had survived the war but died peacefully years later, surrounded by family. The inscription below her name read, "She fought so others could live in peace." That was humanity's promise. That was their gift to the galaxy. They would be the monsters so no one else had to be. They would carry the burden of war so others could enjoy peace. And across the stars, in 1,000 different languages, a new saying spread. When parents wanted to comfort scared children, they whispered the words that had become legend. "Don't worry, the humans are watching, we're safe." And in the darkness, humanity kept its vigil, always ready, always watching, always protecting. Because that was what monsters did for those they loved.